need to touch the phone over there?
There we go.
Yeah, we'll get that here in a second. Right. But happy St. Patrick's Day.
Well, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. I see you wearing a green shirt there.
Yeah, I own one.
Okay, I don't think I own any at all. No, I don't think I do. It's not my color.
No, it's not my color either.
So.
But happy St. Patrick's Day, and for those folks that are joining in for the very first time, we appreciate you spending Tuesday at 7. We had originally planned on just canceling tonight and just letting people drink green beer and eat corned beef, but after everything kind of got, kind of shut down.
Yes, indeed.
We decided to call in Al on very short notice.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Like 48 hours ago?
Yeah, I think maybe Sunday night?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it was Sunday night, as a matter of fact. Sure. Why not? What am I going to do? They canceled everything I was doing and everything I was going to do. So in theory, today I was supposed to be getting out of a trailer for the film that would have wrapped yesterday, but no such luck. It wrapped Saturday, so we missed half a day Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and wrapping out, so 5-day shoot in Cleveland, and Netflix wouldn't let us have it.
Oh my goodness.
They officially shut down Friday night, but production begged for at least part of the day.
Yeah.
In order to get a little bit more work done, so they granted that.
I want to talk a little bit more about that, but as the folks are signing on, we have some phenomenal giveaways. We're not going to talk about that right now. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And you're going to see Craig is behind the camera.
Say hey to Craig back
Hello.
there, everybody.
For those folks that have not yet participated, the reason why we go live is so that you folks who are watching can participate. And so you're going to get some questions and some friends and some former makeup artists, probably some actors joining in that might jump on.
You never know. I'm going to be surprised.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to ask an embarrassing question that I'm going to have to go, I don't remember. Yeah, I know they're asking for that one, but I don't want to say. One of those things.
It's always pass. Pass!
Okay, there you go. I need a bell or something like that.
Yeah.
Pass.
For those folks that share, and I think in the bottom, I don't know if it's the bottom left-hand corner, but you hit the share button while you're watching. You could share it to your friends list. You could share it to a group that you participate in.
Sure, yeah.
Filmmakers.
Probably some of the filmmakers group, the Ohio Filmmaking Group. I think I announced it on all of those, but I don't know. I wasn't sure how easy it would be to get in from there. But once they start sharing, they can get invited. I guess how.
Yeah.
You know how it works.
Exactly. But if you share,
it's too technical.
If you share next week before we go live again next Tuesday, we're gonna provide. We're gonna grab everybody's names who shared, and we're gonna put it in a drawing to receive a few of these things. We're not gonna do this yet, but what we're gonna do is
Let's see part of the word studio there. Studio on a unique piece of fabric. But what studio?
What studio? Well, we'll find out at some point during
we will.
During our interview. Last week, we interviewed Brandon Kimber. Brandon Kimber is a documentary guy, and what was quite ironic, and actually everybody who shared his interview, their names are in this hat, and he got pretty good odds. But before we do that, Brandon did a documentary, Murder in the Park.
Okay.
He also did White Boy.
White Boy, which is the other film about White Boy Rick Wershe.
Yeah, and I think it came out the same year.
It did. I understand that it did.
So Brandon did Murder in the Park, White Boy, and then he's been working on a series called American Gospel, and it's where he's kind of challenging kind of televangelists and the prosperity stuff out there. And, so he's really asks difficult questions in his work. But Brandon was our interview last week, so Al, you can pick the winner. Essentially, you're electing losers here too.
Oh, God, I feel terrible. All right,
you got one of them.
Perfect. I got one of them.
So all 4 of these DVDs.
I see. Would we like to open it for you?
Please. And don't even announce the name. Let's bring the name up to the camera.
Okay, there you go.
Can you see that? I haven't even seen. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. The winner is Mark Foran. Congratulations, Mark. Mark has been awesome because he shares every single week.
I know, Mark.
I'm so glad that you've won these as well. We'll get these to you, Mark. I'm anxious to dig into these giveaways, but we have a little teaser here that says studio. Oh, you know what, Al?
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, why don't you grab your phone and just
Okay.
share it? You'll see this live because you're
Okay.
tagged in it, and just share it to whatever group or whatever friends
Okay.
that you have. And as he's doing that, there's been a lot of momentum picking up with Tuesday at 7. For those folks who are asking, well, what is it? It's a creative community. A lot of folks are located here in the Ohio area, but we have watchers from all over the world, watchers from all over the United States, and at some point we're going to be interviewing folks from all over the place as well. But probably over the last, and I even lose track, 6 months, 8 months of the interviews, most of the artists have been located somewhere in the Ohio area. And it's unique to have so much talent, I think, in the Northeast Ohio, the Cleveland area.
What do I hit in order to actually make it work?
You see that, Greg? And for those folks that are joining, as you share, you'll be put in a drawing for next week. But the reason why I think the live stream is so effective is that it allows people to participate live by asking questions, making respectful comments, of course. And we have Craig behind the phone, kind of arming that. We have Rex B. Hamilton, who was an interviewee a few months ago. Is that right?
December 17th.
December 17th.
Right.
And he's taking some digital stills as well that'll allow us to get these out on the internet. And we thank you folks for joining us this Tuesday. Kind of maybe common things are going on right now. I know that everybody who's live realizes that we're doing this on St. Patrick's Day because everything's closed. They closed the restaurants. They closed
Green.
Oh, you were in green too? They've closed down everything. A lot of businesses are closed. Schools are closed. And Al was able, and Craig was able to get that thing shared out, so we'll go out live to a large audience as well. But we're dealing with coronavirus. Everybody who's watching live, we all know this, but there's going to be people watching this 5 years and 10 years from now.
Oh yeah, that's going to wonder, what's going on about, what's coronavirus? That's that thing that makes you cough. They'll figure something out or what have you, and the next one won't be quite the vicious little new bug on the block. But yeah, it's going to be interesting whenever I go through that. And have you noticed, do you have Netflix, I'm assuming you do?
Yes.
Have you noticed like the number 2 or 3 movie is Outbreak?
Outbreak, everybody's...
Exactly, watching. As a matter of fact, I happened to watch that about a week ago. Because I think I worked on the monkey that they used in their little one when it was supposed to be sedated, but I watched it again and watched as it was getting out of control here and there, and then it goes completely crazy. So, but yeah.
Craig and I were talking that there's phrases like social distancing, and now we're not shaking hands, we're
all these
touching
new
elbows,
phrases, yeah.
and we're covering sneezes and all that. When people watch this from years from now and then look back, we are right now right at the very beginning of it, and so we figured instead of gathering together in a large group that we'd gather together, and Al, who's often out making movies and doing great stuff, was available because everything got canceled, right?
Exactly, everything. Like I think I might have mentioned to you that the next couple of projects that I was looking forward to, so it's like, I had this lined up, I had this line, maybe this, and I was on a roll and it went away. But I think I feel even worse for people that are involved in the businesses that, like restaurants and bars and churches, convention center, all these concerts and things that just too many people, everything's canceled. You're not making money.
Yeah.
And somehow magically you're going to pull $1 trillion bucks out of your butt to pay everybody money to do what? Their bills.
Yeah.
I guess, you still have to pay for your electricity and gas, but if you're not earning money and you're barely getting by out there, people are going to be in a world of hurt. So, so let's see what we can do. What kind of miracle is going to shorten this and make it so that the entire country doesn't go bankrupt?
In the meantime, we creatives are
everywhere.
kind of, I think, often taking this time to return. I mean, I actually picked up a sketch pencil and did some old school self-portrait work, and it's because I had some extra time and I was at home and doing that. But I usually start off interviews with just a question that is either unexpected or just one that is of curiosity to me. And if I were just to give you 2 words, I just want you to kind of react to that, because when I dig into your information, I'm like, is he an actor or is he a makeup artist? And so with that, I mean, so if I were to just say acting or makeup, what's your reaction and why?
Makeup, I prefer that. Between the two, I used to do, when I was growing up, a lot of acting in community theater in college, and occasionally even a couple of films. And those are mostly because they were either friends that were doing films, or with the case of Men in Black 2, I was there, I fit a character, and as soon as like the project painting the big alien was done, I'd be out of work, and my boss or the immediate supervisor said, "There's an alien that you'd look great in, so would you mind coming down, trying it on, and auditioning?" So I went down and did that, and I ended up with about a little over 2 more weeks worth of work after I would have been done on that project. About a week later, got a call and went in and spent about a little over 2 weeks on set. And I'm in the film for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I think I was in the behind the scenes stuff more than that one. But acting makeup, because that's what I wanted to do. Actually, originally I wanted to be a stop motion animator. And before I did that. So for that, you are creating a performance by how you animate the character. And so I figured in order to really understand performance, you ought to know or learn as much stuff about the entire medium as possible, how things move, how to, if a creature or person makes a certain face or gesture, that's going to help portray or give the person watching, here's what this character is thinking or feeling. So I figured acting had to be part of that.
Yeah.
So maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong, but instead of doing stop motion animation, I ended up doing makeup. But that's, still, trying to learn the use of the materials, the mold making and foam latex is what got me pointed in the area, direction of makeup.
So your very beginnings, what I mean by very beginnings, I mean, you'll be able to help us understand kind of where those creative foundations were laid in your life. I mean, some folks will go, yeah, when I was in high school I had some idea of what I wanted to do. We've had some folks we've interviewed and they're like, nah, when I was young, I knew that I wanted to play guitar. I knew that I wanted to. Where did it begin with you? I mean, probably long before you stopped animation.
Yeah, it was when I was really young.
Okay.
And mine is probably different from a lot of, if somebody more recently got into it. A lot of it is because they're exposed to more of it more quickly than get all the information they want. Me, it was, I was a young kid in the 60s, very early 60s. My dad let me watch Goulardi. I was young enough to remember watching that, and then Big Chuck and Houlihan and all those other things.
Yeah.
And those films that they watched, all those old Universal horror things, the Hammer films, King Kong, all those films really fascinated me. In particular, like King Kong and the stuff that Ray Harryhausen did. That's what I wanted to do. But that's where I was like really young. Well, before that I wanted to be an astronaut.
Okay.
Because the Mercury program was done. We would have been in the Gemini program by then. So 2 guys were going up. It was safe then, obviously. You're not by yourself.
Right.
So wanted to do that first, but then I started getting fascinated with monsters. And then I found Famous Monsters of Filmland. And then it started filling in all the information I was trying to figure out. Who did the stop motion stuff? How did he make the puppets? Oh, you can find stuff about how it works in makeup books. So it was just very early on.
were you creating little stop motion projects? Was that kind of like the first year full?
Those were the first ones.
Yeah.
And I did that. I started getting into doing that by the time I was 10 years old, because I know, well, shortly after, because we moved to the west side of town after I was 10, but I had the money already, which was earned by washing dogs on Saturday morning at the pet store that's next door to where my mother would go to get her hair done, over off of East 110th and Woodland, like 1968, 69. Knew I wanted to make movies, and this guy, my parents were giving me 25 cents a week for allowance, but this guy, if I went in and washed dogs on Saturday afternoon or morning while mom was getting her hair done, he'd give me the princely sum of like $2, sometimes $3 for busting my butt for about 6 hours. So I was rich. It was like, I don't make this in a month with my parents.
Yeah.
So in one day I made 3 months, so I'll be able to afford a camera, within the next 10 years, I'm sure. But I got the Trading Times, and I found somebody that had an 8mm camera, a projector, a little tape editor, and a movie screen for $40. And I had $40. So we went over, I tried it out, and I'm looking at the camera, I pushed the button up, and it did single frames, which is like, I could do animation. Oh my God, I was so excited. And started, got clay and pipe cleaners and started messing with that. It's like I was stuck then. I was hooked.
Do you remember that first, the subject matter of those first trials?
It was basically almost like a cone of clay with arms. It was, what was that, Zontire? The thing from Venus, basically. It looked like a pile of poop.
Yeah, it was
with eyeballs and a mouth and 2 pipe cleaners for arms.
Yeah.
And made that slide around, and eventually I said, that looks stupid. And I got a ping pong ball and drew an eye on it and gave him a stalk instead. So he came up and he could blink and had a little fin, and so it was the adventures of the alien around the house.
Nice.
He was, supposed to be that tall, so I was doing that, move it. Occasionally I wouldn't get far enough out of the frame whenever it was going across the floor, so he'd be on one side of the frame, because it wasn't a reflex camera. The viewfinder's up here, lenses down there, so had some parallax problems.
Yeah. So what do they call it? Stop motion animation, right?
Which
so
is,
early on.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find yourself in age 10-ish, right? You find yourself opening up magazines, getting exposed to...
Well, that's exactly, that's about the time I found out about Famous Monsters.
Okay.
It was about the time I was 10, so by 12 I knew this is what I wanted to do. So it was just anything I could find about the process of doing the makeup, the stop motion, and trying to do some trick shots. Like, I'm sure you might be old enough that you remembered watching Stu Levin with the old movies, The Golden Era on Channel 25.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some of the stuff like the original Bruce Willis O'Brien, King Kong, not the King Kong, but Lost World down there.
Yeah.
And the Phantom of the Opera, and all those films with Lon Chaney. And they would pull some tricks, with either mirrors or paintings and things. And I found some books. Spent a lot of time at the library. I mean, because there was nothing. You didn't have computers.
Right.
You didn't have the internet, so you went to the library. I went down to the main branch of the Cleveland Public. Was there any mentors, anybody physically kind of ushering you through those things, or were you just self? It was the only way to do it would be to, look at those magazines, and one issue of that magazine had published. Warren Publishing put out Famous Monsters. They put out the around 1965. It was out for a while, and I saw it advertised in an issue of the magazine, the Dick Smith Monster Makeup Handbook,
Ooh.
which was a whole 60 cents. So I sent that off, and got it and just devoured it because it explained how to do a bunch of really cool makeups.
Yeah.
Getting the cheap or the least expensive. Okay, instead of getting all these fancy makeups, get a set of the little carnival crayon grease paints.
Yeah.
And a little bottle of latex, a little bit of bottle of this, some crepe hair.
Ping pong balls,
exactly.
right? Yeah,
How
I,
to make
I have that.
using corn syrup and stuff, and just devoured that. And I borrowed the Polaroid from my parents to get pictures.
Good pictures.
So I have something to look at. It's like, what did I do wrong here? And then when I was about 14, I did my first life cast, which was disastrous. But it worked, but it was disastrous.
It was disastrous. We want to talk about that. And for those who are joining, we're talking with Al Tuskes. If you're looking for him out on the internet, it's Alan Tuskes.
Yes, ALAN.
ALANTUSKES. And Alan was born here, spent some time in LA, and came back here to Cleveland. We're going to be talking through that. But he is a filmmaker, an actor, makeup artist, do some props and some puppets and some other things too. And we're going to be talking about his journey here. For those folks that share, there's going to be two giveaways. One that you're going to reveal slowly, maybe.
Yep, there you go. Oh, yeah, there we go.
There's a. Should we talk about this?
Sure.
So we'll reveal this. And so one of the giveaways, we want to go ahead and tell us what this is.
All right. In conjunction with Pache, Robert Kurtzman from K&B, Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Burger Effects, when he moved to Ohio, he got into a little partnership with the Pache Airbrush Company, and Pache came up with the Robert Kurtzman's signature series airbrush. This in particular is a Pache H model, which is a single action airbrush. It's minutes to master. No, it's not. Minutes to learn, lifetime to master. Fairly straightforward. If you can get this operated and work well with it, you can pretty much, a double action airbrush is the easiest thing in the world. Great airbrush. Everybody pretty much learns on one of these and has one. I've got probably 6 or 7 of them. Some of them I've used so long that they're actually getting grooves in the handle back here. But this has got Robert Kurtzman. They call it a signature, but I don't think it's his. I'm sure it's not. Trust me, I've seen a signature. This isn't it. But you get your airbrush. You get a 6-foot fabric wound hose. 3 different sizes: the 1, 3, and 5. Color part and tip. Ooh, this color part and tip. The wrench that you need in order to tighten and loosen the part up here. You get a color cup and 2 airbrush bottles. And this you'll be in the running for if you share this particular podcast. Total value, it doesn't matter what the total value.
Yeah. I mean, this is a phenomenal giveaway, especially because you can't get these anymore.
Certainly not the Kurtzman. He might have a couple of those left. He gave me a couple, but they're great airbrushes. I absolutely love. That's the first type of airbrush that I first learned on. My wife got me that airbrush. You've been married for like 38 years ago. It was shortly after we got married. She got me my first Pache H. They were a little bit different then. They had how far down you could depress the button screw, which has since been removed. I still have mine. If I lost the screw, I'm screwed. So. I don't think they make them anymore, to tell you the truth.
You know, I use that same Pache single airbrush because I spray latex through it. Mm-hmm. I cover big areas with it. It's a great workhorse. And quite generous.
Yes. My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, I use it for spraying a lot of the bald cap plastic for silicone appliances. You throw a little bit more, either whatever plastic you're using, alcohol or acetone through it. Make sure it's nice and clean. Set it down. You come back the next time you put something in there. It works just fine. Now latex, God, that's got to be a pain to get out of there.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the some of the color latex run the
Gotcha.
Monster Makers
Gotcha.
color through there
Gotcha, cool.
as I'm doing some bodysuits and some things. But that's a great giveaway. So for those folks who share, you'll be in the drawing to pull the airbrush. There's going to be another giveaway, which we'll talk.
Which you might see a little bit more.
Yeah, you
of
might
there.
see a little more of as we go
Let's cover
through.
that a little bit, so we don't want to give it away too much there.
So remember, if you share, you can share out to a few folks, you can share out to a group, you can share out to your friends list. But this is going to be an exciting interview. So we were talking a little bit about childhood stop motion animation. You started getting into masks, started doing your first face cast. You're smack dab in the middle of teen years. And where do things go from there? Are the wheels on the car at that point?
Well, I mean, is it like I'm continuous, like I'm steamrolling my way?
Yeah, and you're moving, right?
That's basically, and especially, the first time I did a life cast, it was on myself, and I did not have enough information, did not see, I think at that point, no, I had seen a book, it mentioned how to do a life cast properly, using moulage. I think one of the books was the Michael Westmore had done a book, and I know the Lakewood Library has one about makeup, and he actually talks in there about using Krylon cold film, but he talks about doing face casts and such. I was a little too cheap and could not figure out where to get moulage, and I was trying to buy things locally, and at that time the local theatrical supply store, the Masquerade Shop on like 68th and Lorraine, which is where I went to get all the stuff that Dick Smith talked about in the Monster Makeup Handbook, but they didn't have that there. So I thought, well, how hard can it be to actually use plaster to cast your own face? And painful, bloody. I was missing brows and...
You're all alone and you're putting plaster on your face and...
I figured my parents would frown at it if I did it when they were away there, so... It was when I was 14 years old, so I thought I had it down. I kind of had a plan, and the plan didn't work. It got stuck a little. Vaseline, it kind of melted and stuck to all the little... You're 14, you know, that peachy fuzz stuff? Caught all eyebrows, eyelashes. But it pulled it off. And then I Vaseline that and discovered undercuts. So I had to break the negative that I pulled off my face. I was very proud of it. I did use that life cast to make a nose and a Planet of the Apes slush cast appliance, I guess you would call it. They were hollow with cotton inside. So. But I thought I was the coolest guy in the neighborhood out here. So.
Well, I mean, you were one that was doing it. Nobody else was doing it. And...
No, I mean, and obviously without the internet, the only people that knew about it were your friends.
Yeah.
And that was about it. And, of course, there'd be people interested in that. But that was the beginning. And then eventually, about that time, I can't even remember. There was another magazine that I saw at the store called Castle of Frankenstein that had an advertisement for a thing called Cinemagic, which I've got a whole stack full of up on the shelf there. Every issue that ever came out, and it had a lot of articles about freaks just like me that were making, stop motion puppets out of coat hangers and spaceships out of, you get packing, the styrofoam packing out of, and you make, either it's either a top of a spacecraft or it's a backpack, it's your life support system, or whatever. It became a gun, so a lot of it was pretty amateur looking, but they were trying.
Yeah.
So that was another inspiration, and it eventually started showing some relatively sophisticated things in there too. Explained how to do it through either on film and eventually later when video started, like in the 80s, video started coming out, how to do it, film and video.
So you're reading, it's trial and error, you're still a teenager, you start getting to those high school years, you're saying you did some theater and some acting work, you're casting your own face. You're making slush appliances with like what you said, Plenty Apes kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
And so all of a sudden you start to have your animation, your budding makeup, casting skills, your acting, and you find yourself in high school. Like what? How do those converge?
Started, finding other people that were doing the same thing, like at John Marshall High School, a couple of guys, Alan Fallhaber and Oscar Schwartz, and we started coming up with some very, very elaborate films, none of which ever got finished. But, it would involve, I'd get a decent life cast of somebody and sculpt appliances and bake them out of, it wasn't even R&D foam, it was the foam latex that Alcone Company sold. I think it was Uniroyal foam latex initially. And it was like tire rubber. I mean, it whipped up, and I managed to get a couple of pieces out, but they were rough.
They're rough, huh?
They were really rough, and we built sets like up in a friend's attic, and I had one in my basement, another one at Al Fallhaber's house, and we were, I flew rockets too, because when I was a kid, wanted to be the astronaut. So I had, some little panels I made for electrically firing rocket igniters, but instead of using rocket engines, we just went and got gunpowder, which you could literally at that point get any, gun stores.
Yeah.
But went in with my dad, we need some gunpowder. How much do you need? I need about a pound. Get some 4F, and we're putting it on like the doors in our spacecraft set. I mean, this was going across the galaxy. We had a couple of styrofoam doors that we would pull up, and they made the squeaky noise like on Star Trek because they was styrofoam. So you rub the walls, it's like, wow, that's great. And we would, as parts of them had like vinyl shelf liner for color, and that way we can kind of cut part way through the back and put a black powder charge in there and pack it up. And when the lasers go off, which we added very crudely, would go off and pop a hole through the vinyl. And we were shooting this in a friend's attic, but we tried to figure, the insulation, it will burn. So will the vinyl on the surface of it. So bad guys go running through the doors and they pop back through and they're pounding on it with their hands trying to put the set up, sort of stop it from burning, while we're in the neighbor's attic, very dry there.
And I mean, pretty innovative. So I mean, you're looking back to your teenage years. I mean, you've worked and been part of some blockbuster movies. This early stuff is fun to talk about, right? I mean, you go back to those.
I still have those things. I've got some of them on a VHS tape, and I think have a box of the old 8mm and 16mm stuff I did in college.
And then you move into the next phase, right? What
The
is
Star Wars period.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Star Wars period. Like a lot of that other stuff in high school with the explosives was, I think, like when we were like 15 or 16 years old. And then right about then, and I was telling my parents, this is what I want to do. And they're telling me, real people don't do that. It's like, sure, somebody's got to do it. And then it's like, nah, there can't be much money in that. And then that Star Wars film came out and made tons of money. And then they thought, yeah, maybe he could. Well, we don't owe you a college education, so if you're going to go to school for that, you're kind of on your own. And they helped a bit, but I managed to get to Kent State with a scholarship, and took filmmaking there. And it wasn't quite the filmmaking I thought it would be. It was studio art, cinematography, and which was more flickers and juxtaposition of images rather than the technical stuff I wanted, which would have been in new cinematography, which by the late 70s, early 80s, actually needing to know how to run a film camera was becoming obsolete because pneumatic decks were coming out. So, so the new cinematography, which would have been more technical, went away the year I started school.
Yeah.
But on the good, because there were no more film camera stringers.
Right.
So all these guys that had Bolexes and these other fine 16mm cameras, they were handed video decks and said, well, what do I do with this thing? We don't care. Video is the wave of the future. So these guys had cameras and, would sell them for dirt cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays they're, it's kind of like part of that backlash of, your HD video is to, I cherish film, and so cameras I was getting for like $100, $125 with an array of lenses, like 4 matching Switar Rex mount, Rex mounts, there you go. Rex mounts, or like a beautiful Somberthio 17-87 zoom with external, auxiliary viewfinder.
Yeah.
Getting this camera with thousands of dollars worth of lenses for $100 or $150. I ended up with like 3 of them, and then since gotten rid of them because it's like we'll shoot with them again someday because video will not replace film, and I was wrong about that. Oh boy, I was wrong about that. But so using those, I made in college a device called an optical printer, which is the type of thing they used for doing all the compositing in Star Wars. Before you had After Effects, you had to do that all with a photochemical process, which involves rephotographing the actual image, and then doing that and then comping layer upon layer of stuff together with holdback mats and things. And so I learned that, built that because I wanted to, and figured, the more you could do, probably the more you can do, which did work out to an extent once you got out there. You know how to do all these things because the makeup effects kind of is mold making, which is used for miniatures, and performance, which is used for puppetry. The more that you could do, the chances are you'll have the experience, the opportunity to show them something else that you've taught yourself how to do, and it's worked out fairly well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I imagine I'm a Kent State alum as well, and so I imagine that you probably weren't ready for somebody with your drive and what was your thought about that? I mean,
it's interesting in that when you're going through this journey, the people that have that same kind of drive, and it's like, sure, I'm going to do this type of thing. You run into them and you know them for a long time.
yeah.
Like one of the other guys, I don't know when you went, did you know a guy named Tom Keebler when you were going there?
The name is familiar.
Sculptor. He went to Kent State when
Okay.
I was there. He does all these very intricate, like old men that look, these big full-size things, creatures. He's going to be doing a seminar. Well, he was going to be doing a seminar for Smooth On.
Yep.
In I think at the Complete Sculptor in New York.
I wish I knew him from Kent State. I know him from his
Those
work,
yes.
and seeing what he has out there now.
But he was going there when I was going there, as was Mike Davey, the guy Mike Davey Makeup down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I knew him back in college. He was also going to Kent State, and don't know if you've ever run into Scott Gamble or heard of him. He was in college. He was the other guy who was super serious about stop motion and makeup, and he was the guy who knew that got the Dick Smith course and bought that. I would sit there and he said, "I'll let you look at the book," and I was sitting there just, oh my God, look at all this information. It's more information than you ever could find on your own out of books.
Yeah.
And he was just, well, he wasn't giving it away, but he would tell you anything you wanted to know. And he shared that information, and that course was, just to help get it out there. But it also, if you took the course, if you ever had a question, you call him and he would answer you.
Yeah.
Or write him. And even if he didn't take the course, if you called or write him, he would answer your questions.
That's awesome. So, those of you, I know there's probably some folks who have joined, were me with Al Tuskes. We've gone through kind of the early childhood, adolescence, teen years, we're in college. But do you have any questions there?
No questions yet, no.
So, because we're live, I think a lot of folks
We are.
are listening, and I would imagine that as we're going to start to talk about the next phase, the way you start to move into your career path and what you've done, that's probably where the questions will start jumping out. For those folks who share, Al already talked about how giving away an airbrush, it's for
Robert Kurtzman's signature Pache H airbrush from the Robert Kurtzman collection. Originally came with a Pache, one of these things down here, one of these compressors.
oh, yeah.
Like that. I thought you had something hanging.
Compressor doesn't come with it, but
No,
the
it does
airbrush
not, but
does.
This is an excellent compressor. It is their model DA400. If you can get one, they're extremely quiet, and when you're not airbrushing, if there's no demand, it shuts itself off automatically. So, and it's like I said, extremely quiet. When you start using it again, it comes back on. So it's an on-demand airbrush compressor.
John Pass now just asked, what is your favorite creation you have ever made?
Film or just like thing type of thing? God, I don't even know. I mean, everything that I've ever done, whenever you do it at that time, it's like your favorite thing at that point. I think one of my favorites would have to be in the film Tusk. There is when not Justin Bateman, what Justin Long wakes up. Well, he doesn't even wake up. He's woken up. He'd have been drugged, and he's missing a leg, and continues having a conversation. Ends up, I think, getting clocked over the head with by Michael Parks' walking stick. And the next time you see him, Michael Parks is going on a long soliloquy about his horrible youth and the things that he thought that would save him, and how this walrus that had helped save him, he ate because he was starving, and so he needed to get, he felt that Mr. Tusk, the walrus, needed to have an opportunity for vengeance, and he sewed up Justin Long, sewed his arms to the side of his body, cut his legs off, stitched those clothes. Reading the script, I thought it was a disturbing image, and when it showed up on screen, it was pretty much exactly that. But that was just one of the more bizarre things, but I really enjoyed that. Well, I think most of it is that I really enjoyed the whole experience. I was watching Kevin Smith work and working with Michael Parks, watching him and Justin Long, improvise a lot of the conversation. They had their script, but Kevin would just start them and do like a 20-minute take and talk about this, now talk about that. We just love that, but that makeup and the whole walrus thing.
I've watched Tusk within the last 30 days because it is on my repeat watch list. I love that movie. Thank you, John, for asking that question. We'll continue to take some more questions. So you find yourself just at the point of graduating. Where does your life go from there?
This was back in college for a while. I actually didn't even finish. I was a few hours short, and the guy, Corey Lash, who had been the teacher of the new cinematography class, had a company called Corey Lash and Associates, and I worked on building that optical printer. Did a project that I used it to do lasers and some other tricks for one of the student films I did, which kind of blew everybody away because nobody was bothered trying anything like that.
Yeah.
It was more of an art cinematography, and I was making narrative films with laser fights and mutants and fire gags, which it could have gone bad. and I had taken a look through the phone book. Kids, there used to be these really thick things called phone books, and you'd either look for it to find who you're trying to call, because nobody ever changed their numbers. They didn't carry their phones around with them. And if they lost them, well, you didn't lose your phone. It was nailed to your wall. So looked up film companies. Oh, let me call this place, or send them a letter. Sent him a letter. Here's what I do. I'd like to bring my films and show you. And I got a call from him, or his wife, and said, got your letter, looks interesting. You know, Corey'd like to talk with you. So he put him on the phone. He asked a couple of questions. You know, what's a Fresnel light and this and that. What's an apple box? And okay, we're shooting an industrial for LaSalle Industries Thursday. I can use an extra hand. And I thought that was, I'm going to learn how this film shit works for real. I'm going to go volunteer my time for a film crew. It's going to be great. He calls me back. Oh yeah, you're going to make $7 an hour. I'm getting paid for my first film job, and did that. And then a couple weeks later, something came up for B.F. Goodrich's, because you know, it was down in the Akron area. Right. And then something for Uniroyal, and then just on, and worked with him and did some animation for him and a couple of other things like that. So I just dropped out of school because this is what I wanted to, you know, the film stuff. And, you know, if there was something kind of weird that he needed, you know, he'd have me tackle, like building a mount for the van so we can get a low angle shot of this tire wear test trailer. You know, it's like a couple foot and a half above the ground. We need a shot right there. We want to use the company van, so you need to build something that goes on the bumper, and here's $100 to do it. So it's like, I don't even know fucking where to go. Sorry, I don't even know where you go to rent this. I didn't know if you could rent the equipment, and you have no internet lookup. So I just started looking at other, you know, where do I go? And it never occurred to me, you know, maybe call another city. Well, what the heck are all the production cities? You didn't know that at the time. So it was a trial by fire. Mm-hmm. I did that for a while, and then I wanted to do kind of what Tom Savini had done. You know, he was living in Pittsburgh, never went and moved anywhere else up until that point. But he met somebody who was a director, who was a good director, and managed to work with him and not have to leave town. And then people would call him, and he'd go do other places and do it, but he could always go home. I wanted to do that. So, and at that point, you still needed film to do a movie, because video was not good enough during the, you know, late, you know, at this point it was early 80s. Mm-hmm. VHS had just come out in like 83 or 84. Yeah, I think probably. And it was that, or you were trying to shoot something on 3/4 inch. And that just, the people that were trying to make films had no clue how to do it around here. Yeah. So I worked on, I think, on one decent film that was, what was a real movie? It was the Double Dragon shot here. And I met a couple of people. I met Bart Nixon, and I cannot remember the guy that came out with him. They worked a lot for the Kyoto Brothers. They were working for the Kyoto Brothers at the time. They did makeup effects for that, and I ended up making ventilating a mustache for them. A production company called because they were looking for somebody locally, and they heard from somebody that Al, you know, one of those things. Al figured out how to ventilate hair, because I figured you had to know everything. Can you make a mustache? Sure. Did it. Worked out fine. You know, Art Mixon and Earl Ellis, that was the other person. So that was pretty good. Then, can I see your portfolio? And of course, I had the portfolio that had every makeup that I had ever done, 50 photos of each one. And he says, okay, first thing you want to do, 5 pictures maybe. If you can do 4 pictures, do that. Best stuff, the stuff that you're proud of. It's like everything else, they would rather see 2 good pieces than 60 bad ones, or 10 mediocre ones. So it's like, cut it back. Okay, cut it back to whatever. And you know, are you planning on making the jump? I said I would like to pretty shortly. It's like, okay, do this, keep working on what you're doing, do more of that, get some good pictures of your molds, and you will have work. And he was fucking right. So, you know, eventually my wife and I, like around 1990, 91, whatever it was, decided to sell the house we had, retired with the snow, and moved to California. And the rest is history.
Now, and I'm gonna come there.
Now we're gonna go to history.
Now,
Okay.
did you spend any time? I know that we have a lot of hunters in our viewing. Did you spend any time working on any
Haunts?
Yeah.
Yes, as a matter of fact. First haunt that I went to, I believe, was
Yeah.
the Bloodview Heights.
Yeah.
I think, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because when I was a kid, I remember my dad taking me to like a Parma JC's there.
Mhm.
And then later on, whenever I started getting into this, and I found out that, okay, they do makeup there. You know, found out about that, and then there was something I was trying to contact, like a Panic Productions or something like that. Anybody? Okay, so Rex is shaking his
Mhm.
head. I remember seeing an article in the paper about that, and I thought, well, that's a damn smart way of doing it. And I'd done, or tried to do, those, like, the really low-budget films, Deadly Reunion, at that thing. I think everybody that ever touched a makeup brush or latex worked on. I know Dave Greathouse did. Did you work on that one?
No, I didn't.
Oh, Carl Taliaferro worked
Yep.
on it. I worked on it. And that thing was never going to happen. Then there was the 33rd Night that PJ South, and that was a guy from college that I was working with, went to go do that, and that was, oh my God, awful. It
Okay.
never got finished. Neither did the 33rd, or the Deadly Reunion.
I walked through the doors at Robbie Heights, Bloodview, in 1990, became involved, and I missed you.
Okay.
Because I think you were already
I think already heading out.
heading out, right?
Was that about the time that Dave Greathouse did that Bigfoot movie?
Yeah. That was a little bit later that he
Okay.
did that, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah,
and
'cause-
so I had missed like our paths
Yeah.
didn't cross because you were there, and then you had lunch. You left Cleveland,
Yeah.
and you went to L.A., right?
Yeah, I lived initially in Encino, and sometime after, like a couple years, there was that Northridge quake, and that was kind of interesting and fun. That was, oh God, when that occurred, it's going to be my first day at Rick Lazarini's studio. And so, you know, we bounced out of the way and didn't pick up my cell phone because they didn't exist yet. Tried calling the studio because I didn't know, and, you know, went right to tape recording. And because I didn't know what is earthquake, you know, etiquette, because I didn't know, you know, in spite of the fact that a couple blocks over there was a big hole in the middle of the street and there's flame belching out of it from, well, no, I knew it was a gas line.
Yeah.
But in my mind, he was convinced that it was like lava or something like that. You know, see that, there's dogs all over the place because all the walls in everybody's backyard fell down. Are you supposed to go to work? Do you have to call off? I don't know how this works. So I drove there. And there's a note on the door, we're closed today, dumb fucks, go home. And so, you know, it was very dark and cold for that week without electricity.
Yeah.
But then after that, my wife said, I'd like to move away from the city for that. So we moved up to Palmdale, bought a place up there. And she said, yeah, this is going to be further away. We're not going to have earthquakes since we're driving through this one rise. You can look at the rocks, the strata there, and it's just like you could see the ripples where we were driving over the San Andreas Fault, about a mile from my house. So I'd never told her about that, but we never had issues with that one the entire time we were there. So
Yeah.
thank God. But yeah, we were really close.
So is it true, because I think I read someplace, that you had, I don't know, it was like a ridiculous amount, like 100-ish credits in like 15 years,
God,
10,
more than that. I
more than
think.
that?
And actually, that's IMDb. They don't have them all.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff where either they didn't pick up the credits, I wasn't afforded a credit. There's some up there that I put up because I was listed like, I was the key painter for the big giant octopus thing in Men in Black 2.
Yeah.
Didn't get a credit for it. I got that because Steve Koch came in with Photoshop artwork. This is kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah.
You guys that we want to paint, grab a tentacle and do your interpretation of that. So we all each grabbed, 4 of us that grabbed a tentacle, airbrushed it out, and they came back, Rick came, and Steve Koch came, director came, and they looked, we like this one here. It's like, whose is this? It's like, that's mine. It's like, okay, everybody match this paint job. It's like, you're normally painters, I don't. So,
But LA was like balls to the wall, right? I mean,
yeah,
you're boom, 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 boom.
There were times when, get a gig and then the next day your pager would go off.
Pager.
Go off. It's like, who the hell is that? And you call up. It's like, hey, you available to work? I'm working. Can you work in the evenings then? It's just like I'm going to be, I worked at K&B a lot, and they got knocked off at 4. And I'd go work for Ed French from 4:30 because he was 5-10 minutes away, and go work there, evenings, double up until 9 or o'clock at night or so, and then drive home, just turning down work a lot. So, but I, went in. I was a little bit older than most guys because I didn't go out there till I was about 30, and most of them would go out by the time. Well, a lot of them went out when they were really young.
Like Houseman, I think 19.
19
He's
or
got
something
his
like
first
that.
trip
Yeah.
out there, right?
Exactly. But a lot of guys would go out there younger, wanting to do that, or it was the thing to do until their career in rock and roll or acting got off the ground.
Right.
So they were going out for other reasons, and it was a lot of them just stayed in it or did both. Yeah. Chris Nelson. He was one of the guys that worked at K&B a lot, and if you've seen Kill Bill 1 and 2, he ended up being the groom. It was Uma Thurman's husband, the guy she was marrying. He was also in The Rage. He was the first victim on the gurney at the very beginning of the film. The guy still does makeup, but he does acting too.
Yeah.
He was in Inglourious Basterds. You have to look for him to recognize him.
I see a lot of the makeup artists who also jump in, and so imagine if you can do both, then you're twice the value. But what are some of those earlier movies? So you're out to LA, you're already boom, boom, boom. What are some of those early movies that you look at and you're like, wow, I mean, those were milestones?
Well, a lot of them were, things that ended up being very cool or very interesting, or, a lot of concentrated, getting to meet the other people you're working with.
Yeah.
Like at Stan Winston was surprisingly one of the early bigger studios I worked at. I think it might have been, the first ones were small, like Modus Effects, Kyoto Brothers, which, I love those guys because they like doing stop motion.
Yeah.
And then while I was working there, I ended up getting a call from Stan's for, somebody that I worked with at Kyoto's had gone to work there, and they're looking for people, with certain materials, like the epoxy cal type mold making materials. I don't think we used epoxy cal. We used that Freeman, I think it's 706 on the bottom shelf.
Yeah.
But know how to use that without having to be taught. And, I think it was Barry Crane that had left, said, you need more guys like this? This guy knows how to do that. And he, did some really tight shit over there at Kyoto, so got a call from them, and I made a rule early on, which is good because I've seen people break the rule. is when you're in the middle of a show, never leave for the bigger, better deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the bigger, better, because you're probably going to make about the same money, but you know, maybe it's a cooler film, doesn't matter because they hired you to be there, and there aren't that many people that do it, and everybody knows everybody. And if you bail on like a film, maybe you get away with it. Start doing it again, and you're going to screw yourself out of work. So never leave a job show. So finished at Kyoto's, and we got to the point where, well, we're slowing down. We might have something, or you know, we're finishing this show. Do you want to stick around for the next one?
Yeah.
And I think it was actually they might have been slowing down, because then I called Stan's back, got to work on the that latest version of The Island of Dr. Moreau, and went in there, and it's bigger shop. They've got some of these guys that I read about, or that were writing articles for
Back
Cinemagic.
then.
You know, Paul Mahias, you know, Craig Reardon, all these guys before they were professional makeup artists.
Yeah.
Were writing these articles or doing makeups, or Tony Gardner, who used to live in North Olmsted, you know, back when I was younger, and surprisingly, I never ran into him. We knew of each other from Huntington Playhouse. So, never ran into him, knew of him, he knew of me, and
You meet out there, right?
yep, exactly. You know, somebody called and said, Tony's looking for guys, and I called up and left a message, you know, with the secretary. He called me, Al, always wanted to meet you, come on out, yeah, we're doing this or that. So you know, at Stan's, I worked on Island of Dr. Moreau, The Relic, what else? The Ghost of the Darkness. I was supposed to be there about 6 weeks. I was there for about a year. And then, you know, ran off from there to KMB, because he had recommended me to Stan, even though I had not met him yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess Stan needed guys, and he said, you know, do you have any guys that you guys are laying off? Nope. Well, do you have any guys that you're thinking about hiring? Well, so next on our list is this guy. Gave him my info, so that's why I went to Stan, and like 2 weeks later, Howard called from KMB and said, are you available? It's like, you recommended me to Stan. It's like, well, are you close to being done? No. Nowhere close right now. Well, let me know. And then a year later, called him up and said, yeah, we're going strong. Come on in. So went to there, ended up at Steve Johnson's, back at KMB a lot of times. Eventually worked at Rick Baker's and Greg Cannon's. And so just bounced around a lot.
There's a lot of effects artists and a lot of movie folks, productions, directors that tune in here too. But you also have a lot of fans that tune in here. And so some of the movies that you worked on during that time. So, I mean, and I just threw it out there for the fun of just seeing what resonates with people, right? And
Right.
as we were kind of promoting the interview today, I was like, name a movie that
I
Al worked on, and From Dusk Till Dawn.
3 of those.
Three of them. Yeah.
Yeah, the other 2 aren't really worth watching.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're great. Greatest movies ever. I can't even remember them.
Yeah.
One was The Hangman's Daughter, Dusk Till Dawn, Texas Blood Money or something like that. I think it might have been, those were shot, I think, in South Africa.
Yeah.
So.
It's still part of Lent, and you worked on Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
right?
That was at Greg Cannon's, as a matter of fact, yeah.
Yeah, and you've worked on a bunch of different.
And you know, it's not all. A lot of it was horror. I mean, some of it not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those are the better films. Like Green Mile wasn't really horror, more of a fantasy type thing. But worked on that. The little girls that he held on, was holding on to. Those were silicone dummies. You know, Looney Tunes Back in Action was a lot of fun. If you've ever seen that.
I haven't. But
Oh my God, it was great because they, whatever, I'm sure, I can't remember if that was one of those ones with, Brandon, what the hell's his name? He was in the original, or not the original, the Mummy movies that came out, Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
I think that was,
the
I
Mummy,
think Brendan
right?
Fraser
Yeah.
was in the Back in Action, but it was live action with the animated characters, and some are good guys and some are bad guys, but they ended up at Area 53. And what was cool about that was all the aliens were aliens from movies from the 50s. And so we got to make a Triffid copy, or make a Triffid, the big plant thing. We got the original Robbie the Robot from, I think Bill Malone owned it. So this thing came in there and you loaned it to us. And it was the real deal. Big crates, a couple of them. Pulled this thing out, we're looking inside, and like the shoes that were inside the robot's feet were held, with straight blade screwdriver screws, pair of loafers to a piece of plywood, and all these parts were fiberglass. And so we had to carefully dismantle this thing and mold it, and then put it back together again in order to make copies of this thing. Except instead of having whatever the heck machinery it had in the middle of it, I think it had a toaster or something. We did the Robbie the Robot. We did like Metaluna, the big giant, or anything with the claw hands. Just a bunch of stuff from 50s and 60s movies. And then like a big head alien thing, which was big. Oh my God, it was a full-size construct. It was like, at that point, the largest fully silicone thing I'd ever made.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, okay, this is going to be a bitch trying to measure out and fill out. But it worked out, I'd put a skeleton in it and stuff. But that's a fun movie. But it wasn't, it wasn't a horror film.
Yeah, yeah.
Evolution wasn't a horror film, but that was big, fun creature things. Oh, that and one year was a Summer of Giant Creatures. And we did Spiders, which was directed by Gary Jones, who is an Ohio resident, who directed The Dead Matter. No, he didn't. He was the first AD on The Dead Matter, if I recall correctly. I think. He didn't direct that. But he directed Mosquito. He directed, Bunyan. Right out the Paul Bunyan. Directed almost the full season, or second, directed a lot of Xena, but he directed Spiders, which was a giant practical spider thing. It had some digital stuff, but we built, starting giant spiders, middle-sized thing that was about 5 feet long, and then the front half of about a 30-foot spider. And also that summer, Toby Hooper directed, I don't remember if it was called Alligator, Crocodile. Because then it was Crocodile 2 Death Roll, which was directed by Gary Jones. So, but just big, giant, goofy, big boogity monsters. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like Roger Corman stuff, but better.
Yeah.
A bit more of a budget. So,
Yeah.
had good times back then.
I'm sure that it's a simple question to ask. It's a complex answer I'm confident of. Big budget or low budget?
Low budget.
Yeah.
I like low budget films. The big budget ones, they pay better. In the end, they pay better. Of course, if you're going to work on them, they've got contracts, union contracts, and things like that. Depending upon where you're shooting them, whose jurisdiction, if you're doing a union film. It pays a lot better, but a lot of times you deal with people that have egos or some such a thing. People come from California, especially here. I worked on set on more big budget films here than I did in California. Usually there were guys that were at the shop a lot longer than you. On the bigger films, they'd be there because they'd be getting the union pay, or if they're puppeteering, they'd get the union. You're basically acting as a puppeteer.
Yeah.
Did that for a commercial for Taco Bell that got extremely heavy airplay, and made a ton of money from one night's work. You know, you get paid every time. And I wasn't a union member, I wasn't a SAG member, but I operated the puppet because I was one of the people that helped build the puppets. We had a lot of puppets.
Yeah.
And so you had your hand up alien butts for this Taco Bell commercial. You had 2 of them you're working. And so you stick your hand up there, you behave or perform it for 12 hours, you make so much money for that night.
Yeah. And
they said, you'll be getting some residuals in the mailbox. And it's like, oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's what allowed me to help start building this shop. So.
Yeah, I mean, and we're gonna come back here because this is a phenomenal shop, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And we're in Ohio. We're not in LA.
We are not in LA. But still, below budget, more fun. They generally give you more freedom. The people that work on them, a lot of times they have, like maybe they were like the makeup department head will come in.
Mm-hmm.
The big budget things, a lot of times they come in arrogant with an ego and whatever they I don't know if they're insecure, but they've achieved this status and they're afraid of losing it.
Mm.
So they come in very defensive and come in and can be real assholes.
Yeah.
The lower budget things, a lot of times they're friends. Like some of the nicest ones are personal makeup artists for this actor or that actor. They come in with this actor.
Yeah.
They know they're lucky to work with this guy all the time, and they're the nicest people ever. And because a lot of them, because they're just straight makeup artists, because I get a lot of calls because of less typical things that like an LA makeup artist can do, or most of them know how to do or practice because they've had to.
Yeah.
Like hand laying a beard
Mm-hmm.
is actually a very specialized skill.
Yeah.
I taught myself that because I wanted to be a werewolf. I didn't want it just to be all black or all brown. I wanted it to look like
colors,
this.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly like that or like this. So you learn how to blend. You blend
Mm-hmm.
different colors. You learn how to lay it. You learn how to comb it. You learn how to trim it so it blends together, and it looks like something that isn't like right there and that's a beard.
Yeah.
No, that's what Goulardi wore. It doesn't really look like a beard.
Yeah.
But that gets me jobs that I would not otherwise have. And these people are the sweetest people in the world.
Yeah.
So they come in and they're a pleasure to work with. We had a rough one last fall, and it's like I don't want that experience again.
Yeah.
And then the Netflix thing we just had, the department head came in from Romania.
Mm-hmm.
Because a week of it was shooting here, there are shoots in Romania, and in order to maintain continuity, she came in to Cleveland, and she was going to be here till today, but I don't know if it was her idea, with the way that the country was going, she decided to fly out Friday.
Mm.
So we finished the last day without her, unfortunately.
So you're in LA. I mean, balls on the wall. You got credits coming out, but you come back to Cleveland. What?
Had kids.
Kids.
My wife and I. It used to be. It was going to be career.
Yeah.
Terry's motto used to be nobody impregnates the great and powerful Oz, and she maintained that for the first 20 years that we were married.
Yeah.
So. Around 2000, she suggested, I was 40 years old in 2000. She was younger.
Less than that.
Yes, less than that. And she said, maybe, you would make a great dad.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to try. And I think she figured, I used to be I was Big Al in California. People still refer to me as Big Al. And I think she figured, he's 40, not the best shape. I'm 38. Probably they ought to be getting a little stale. And I think she thought that it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
It did with a vengeance twice, almost exactly 2 years apart. And we started looking at the schools in California when we're, getting, when they were getting, Bayla was like 3 years old. 4 years old. We had her, 4 years old in preschool, and just started looking at the schools up in Palmdale. That's where we bought a place, which is
Yeah.
up in the desert,
Yeah.
and just looked and said, I don't know about this education. So we had come back to visit my parents and went out and looked at houses and came across this thing,
Mhm.
which was considerably different at the
Yeah.
time. Outside, about the same, didn't have the in-law suite or the therapy room. We'll call it a therapy room.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people aren't saying you have a what, that type of thing. It's the therapy room. For my wife, we put that in because of her arthritis. So,
So you're back here.
So we're back here.
You've got LA skills,
Mhm.
and
What happened then?
yeah,
Bob Kurtzman was determined. He directed in California. He moved out there. He directed The Demolitionist first, which was a low-budget film he had written, and he had come up with a story for this film called. He wrote the story,
Yeah.
not the script for that thing called From Dusk Till Dawn. And this geek that used to work at this video store in Chatsworth recognized him. Was excited whenever Bob would come in. This Quentin Tarantino guy was a clerk there, and he talked with Bob, and Bob, he was like, "I'm a big fan of yours. I write scripts. I've got some that I'm trying to get out there." And he showed him the script for Reservoir Dogs and True Romance, and Bob read those and was like, "This guy's pretty damn good. These things are great." And this was before it was Quentin.
right.
And so Bob had a producing partner and he and I, each one of them picked up $750 and gave Quentin $1,500 to write From Dusk Till Dawn, turn the treatment or the story into a script, which he did longhand on legal pads, and his mom would type up on an Underwood typewriter.
Mm.
So he got that done, gave it back to Bob, and started trying to shop it around with the idea that Bob would direct it. And he and his, I think it was Howard and Greg, did like a little, teaser trailer like people do now.
Yeah.
It was shot on film, and it had Joe Pilato, who was Rhodes in Day of the Dead, the guy that gets ripped in half.
Yeah.
That's Joe Pilato. So he was going to have the not Gordon Gekko, the part that George Clooney had.
Yeah.
So they had this little thing in their car with the crosses and the bullets, shopped it around, showed the script, tried to make a package, nothing happened with it. So it goes on the shelf. Meanwhile, Quentin does the script, the script for True Romance gets bought. He makes Reservoir Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
He does script doctoring for a couple of other films, and all of a sudden, his scripts are the hottest thing in the world after Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And Robert Rodriguez, because of El Mariachi, and then he does what the hell did he do? Was that Once Upon a Time, the remake of it, or did he do something else between? Once Upon a Time in Mexico is almost the same. No, wasn't there? What was the one? Or it was almost exactly El Mariachi. I cannot remember. Anyway, so
Everything
he
aligns, right? Everything aligns.
yeah. So those two become the hottest thing, and one of the studios, Weinstein Company, Miramax, Weinstein, says, we want to do whatever he's got, and Bob brushes off, here's a Quentin Tarantino script, I'd like to direct it. No, that, Rodriguez guy's going to do it. You can be a producer. You want to do the makeup effects? You do the makeup effects. So, we were there, and Quentin would come and hang out, and Robert Rodriguez would come down, see what we're working on, and hang out. And, they saw us having what we would call, I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday nights. Everybody would bring in like their vinyl Godzilla kits, their Billiken kits, their Horizon.
Yeah.
Hang around the table and have a couple beers and eat pizza. And he came in after, what are you guys doing? And, oh, that sounds great. So the following week he showed up with whatever model kit he had.
Yeah.
And brought beer and ordered pizza and hung out with us. And Quentin was friend of the family. You know, even when he got successful, still rode around in a little Ford Fiesta. This little piece of shit car, and we were moving the shop from one shop to a bigger one. He came, you know, we went to all the crew went to all the storage things.
Yeah.
Went to the storage lockers, and Howard threw away shit he wasn't going to keep. And we moved the stuff, put it in our cars, and took it to the next place, and Quentin would come and do that with us too. So, but Bob moved back here because he wanted to direct more, because he did that, and he did The Demolitionist, you know, wrote, you know, did the story, and then from that, about that same time he got hired to direct Wishmaster, which was extremely well received.
Yeah.
So he thought he was going to go on, continue, and he did, with directing, but he figured, I don't have to live in California to do that. So like a year and a half before I moved back, he had done the same thing and settled back in his hometown of Crestline.
Yeah.
So when I got back here, you know, I said, you know, I'm moving back to Ohio, like, let me know when you get here. And I did, and, you know, we were unpacking, and about 3 weeks later, it's like, I got a project, can you come down and work?
Yeah.
And, okay, and so, you know, initially it was like a couple little small makeup gigs. He wanted to concentrate on doing CGI, because you could do that from anywhere. And so then it was some of that for, was it the Driller? No, it was a remake, the Toolbox Murders, some other couple low budget things, and then, God, 2001 Maniacs, and a couple of other things like that, and then Devil's Rejects, and a couple of other bigger made-for-TV things. And then makeup shit started on top of that. And because of I was kind of coordinating all the stuff, I eventually just became supervisor down there, because it was like, yeah, I need to have this done. I need this done. So I would, okay, you take care of this, you do this. I got to sit down and talk with Bob about how he wants to do it. So I ended up coordinating and supervising for the next 14 years down at Crestline.
Yeah.
So, and then he went off to Atlanta, and the studio closed, where now it does Halloween masks. And I thought, I don't have to drive down there. I keep getting calls up here, and I don't have to go there. So let me put a place in here, the Secret Lab.
Secret Lab. You have any questions coming up from there? If you guys have any questions, we're kind of feeling we're kind of winding down, but ask those. But before we wind down completely, we had talked about if you share. We talked about the airbrush before, but we haven't really revealed
This one here.
So next week, 2 separate giveaways.
All right.
Airbrush is one, and tell us what this is.
Okay, this is something that most people are not ever going to be able to find anywhere, because it wasn't ever really sold. This here you look at, it's like, what is that odd little thing that looks like a heartbeat? Well, this is an S and this is a W, because this here is a Stan Winston Studios crew shirt from like the mid-90s or so. Which features the Terminator endoskeleton, the maybe not quite as popular Pumpkinhead that Stan Winston directed and did the suit for, the Queen Alien from Aliens, the Predator, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger partially ripped up makeup animatronic head, and I believe you got some Edward Scissorhands hands down there. But I got this, he gave it to me years ago, and unfortunately Stan has subsequently left us. So the studio exists no more. Yeah, well, he gave me this. Well, actually, this one was from my wife. I got one of myself. And my wife doesn't really wear it that much. It has a little bit of wear on it, I guess, showing on it, but
I'll tell you what, yeah, that is, yeah, let's pull it up just so people can see, because this is not anything that
you're not going to buy that anywhere.
So, does that look centered?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So for the second giveaway, a limited edition and not available anymore.
I've got the other one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a few folks that worked there at
Yeah.
the time, but they probably wore them to work more frequently than I did.
There might not be any of these out available, really.
Well, they're probably in
Possibly.
pretty bad shape.
So that's awesome. So we have two different giveaways for next week. What we typically find out is that we got people watching live, and people's going to watch tonight here on Tuesdays,
gotcha,
and then for
gotcha.
the next couple of weeks, people are going to watch. And certainly for the next week or so, as they share it, it
Gotcha.
moves. It
Gotcha.
moves. So
Christina did ask, what project did you not get that you really would love to work on yet?
Well, one might occur. Just through the grapevine, is that one of the projects that is possibly coming to Cleveland is something that is going to be, and I don't know what it is. I've just heard a couple of people mention this, but a Peter Jackson film is going to be coming. And one of the very few regrets I have is that when I went to the first makeup artist trade show in Pasadena, California, the very first one, it wasn't even in Pasadena, it was at the Beverly Garland Hotel? Before it moved into Pasadena, it was at a much smaller hotel the first year, and I met a guy named Richard Taylor there from a place called Weta. And he was handing out these cards with information, like to see your portfolio and stuff, and Howard Berger had introduced me to him because we did a lot of stuff for, K&B did a lot of stuff for Hercules and Xena Warrior Princess. So they worked, Howard and some of the guys from K&B worked, we made stuff for them and shipped it down there. Howard would go, a couple of other people would go, and worked with Weta Workshop, which eventually also included Weta Digital whenever they were getting together. And we've got some films to work on, we need some paper, and Howard speaks highly of you, and he's like somebody's great at molds. And we had just bought the house in Palmdale, and we were talking about these films, these Lord of the Rings things that I guess are of some note at this point. And it's like, well, I can go, but my wife, she started a company here. I'd have to be able to send some money back and live there. It's like, no, you'd have to really move here. It's going to take forever to do these films, like 3 years, 4 years, and we're talking about some other stuff. So one of my few regrets was saying, no, I don't want to move to New Zealand and work on 3 films that people are going to remember for a while. 4 films. There was some Hobbits and all those other things in there. But I'd like to work with Peter Jackson. And I've been getting lucky in lately. A lot of things I work on are dramas. And working with some actually really good actors and actresses like Walton Goggins and Olivia Colman on some stuff in the last few years. But I was looking forward to this last year when everybody was shooting here last fall. I was approached about a project called My Only Sunshine, which was going to be Simon Pegg and J.K. Simmons, both of whom I love, especially J.K. Simmons. And I don't say especially Simon Pegg. I mean, it's Simon Pegg, and you can tell he loves what he does.
Yeah.
And this was going to be a vampire bank heist. And it's just like, that would be great. And I got contacted. It's like, what are you seeing for these things? And I talked with the director for days. It's like, here's how I'm seeing this. Did some sketches. It's like, you can handle it. Okay, good. We want to use you. But they just couldn't. Simon had so much stuff booked that they couldn't come up with a time frame.
Yeah.
And when they were ready to, Minuteman and Fred Hampton Project were starting, and Cherry at the same time.
Yeah.
So they would have been ready when there would have been no film crew ready to go. So I just found out recently it still hasn't been shot. It was leaving here to go to New Orleans, at that point, like last October. still hasn't been shot, and when I talked to the director last, he said right now we're getting ready to shoot it in Bulgaria. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, like that would have been fun movie, working with Simon Pegg
Yeah.
and J.K. Simmons.
Why is Cleveland, Northeast or Ohio probably,
Yeah.
a place of interest? I mean, I don't remember Spider-Man and stuff as I was a kid
Right.
being shot around here, but
Well, what makes that happen is the same reason they go to Canada, why they go to Bulgaria. It's whoever provides the greatest financial benefit to the producers determines where they're going to go. And for the most part, they try, once they make a decision, they try to stick with it there. The issue with Cleveland had been when the film incentive became available about 11 years ago. It was smaller, but as soon as it happened, we got hit with a bunch of films. The first, was it the Spider-Man film? Maybe a little bit later, because I know, like in one year we had the Avengers. I didn't work on that one because I worked on Boot Tracks and like 3 other films that were shooting, like one right after the other. Boot Tracks and Fun Size, and there was something else, and then the Universal or the Marvel film. But they'll come as long as that money is available. They get that rebate back. As soon as it's gone, it goes away. So, it's like if they used it all up at the beginning of the fiscal year in July, by winter, nothing else is coming in until the end of June, and the new tax incentive is made available. So that was an issue. It would like all go out at once. And then finally they got it, to double a couple of cycles ago, like 2 years ago. And then again last year they got it from $20 to $40 million. Then last year we were trying to get up to 100, and somebody had suggested just getting rid of it. So we had to fight to keep it rather than raise it. But they did make some smarter decisions, because once a certificate was permitted, like, okay, we've approved your budget, make your film, they did not have a deadline for it. So some of the bigger ones that people were trying to do, like this Torso with Matt Damon, for years about $12 million of that incentive was tied up waiting for it to come. So finally this last year I said, okay, 90 days to start your film, or it goes on to the next person, and we're taking the $40 million, making half of it available this last July 1st. So the fall we had like 3 films all around the same time, or back to back and overlapping. And then this spring, I was down in Cincinnati for a Bruce Willis film. Then I was, shot on this No One Gets Out Alive. There was something else in there, I cannot even remember what. Tri-C project for their student boot camp. They're gonna make up for that. And now we've got, if we would have kept going, No One Gets Out Alive would have finished. I got a call for a Steven Soderbergh that's shooting up in Michigan somewhere, and then I got a call for this thing called Undercover, and then I'm hearing that Peter Jackson. So it's just like on a roll. As long as that money is there, they will come. Because if they don't shoot it here, originally White Boy Rick was supposed to shoot in Detroit, but they figured, he is still not a person they like up there, so there might have been people harassing the crew if they shot it there, so it came here. When the film a few years back called Kill the Irishman was supposed to shoot here, we had run out of incentives, so they went up to Detroit and shot the Cleveland film in Detroit. So
makes sense.
So they made their film first, or that film first, and we got the film about the kid from Detroit here instead. So
That's something,
So
Richard Stano wants to know if you belong to a union, what kind of or what union it is, and how do you become part of a union?
In Ohio, the union for all film crafts except for camera operators, and I think editors, is IATSE 209. So that would be grips, electrics, art departments, wardrobe, makeup, and so on. for the most part, getting into that is working on enough stuff, and it doesn't need to be union, as long as it's organized enough to put out a call sheet. You know, proof that you worked on films. You could use pay stubs from films, like, you know, independent things. If you don't have pay stub or call sheets, pay stubs will work as long as it's got the production company name on there, and it's a certain, I think it's like 30 days for each of 3 subsequent years. It's not that hard, and it's can be easy to get in if you get hired on a union film, because by the rules that productions companies make with the union, if you know the entire union roster is used up or they're working on other projects are not available, then you can bring in non-union people for up to 30 days before they have to join, you know, at that point. Or take the option of joining. They may not want to continue another film after that. I've had people, or I know people that want to get in to work on these things, and it's like, okay, they get hired as a day player, they come in, they do background character, makeup art, makeup work, and it's just like, God, we're sitting around a lot. It's like, yeah, that's what it's like. Oh, this sucks. Why did I join this? You know, and they don't even finish paying their signing up fee, the initiation fee, which I think is only like $1,000, which on even the lowest tier film, like in a week, you will make, you know, after taxes and all, considerably over that.
What advice do you have for folks, makeup, actors, I mean, folks in the film industry? What advice do you have for folks on the front end of that?
Well, I think is that because so much information is available on the internet, you know, a lot of it is more opinion-based than it is fact-based. Mm-hmm. So watch where you're getting your information from. Networking is everything. I mean, it's so much easier now than it was when I was young. You know, and don't be afraid to experiment. Don't copy shit you see out there all the time, because sometimes those are not good ideas. Like, I cannot tell you how many zipper faces and Coke can in the eye sockets. It's like, God, do anything but that. Yeah. Something but that. Do a Planet of the Apes type face, but
be original.
Yeah.
Network well.
Exactly.
Right, get yourself out there.
Exactly. I mean, and a lot of things like the 24-hour film contests and the other, you know, horror film festivals and things like that. Get that exposure. Get copies of the stuff if you can. Like, even, I guess, if you're an actor, don't include your background work. You know, that brief fleeting shot, that still of you for one of the frames where you're in the background, don't do that. Just, I mean, get your actors, you know, take, even if it's like a big film, because like when, you know, some of these films come through, they'll use 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 background actors over the shoot, the length of the shoot of a film. And so you might make it into 3 shots, leave those out. I guess you can put them on your resume, but they really don't care about your background. So do the 24-hour film things, or do the student films and get those things. And look at your performance, where you're actually one of the characters, because that's the only way you're going to do it.
And you had mentioned earlier, too, finish what you start.
Yeah.
Right, finish what you start.
Oh, yeah.
We are in the secret lab. What's up with Tuskes here in 2020, 2021, pending the work and shops opening back open after this coronavirus?
Well, I really want to train some folks. That's like one of the reasons why we had Dan Click. I want to work. I haven't worked on anything for myself in about forever. You know, I've been doing the stuff that the producers want, which are cool ideas, but it's like, I really need to do something, take my time, do a nice sculpture, make a nice mold, do a couple of clean character makeups. I need to do another old age makeup.
Yeah.
I haven't done one that I could take my time with for years. I mean, I did one a couple of years ago where it was in the middle of the winter, and it's like, we need an old age makeup by next week. It's like, well, how old? Well, she needs to, the woman's about 35, she needs to be about 85. It's like, okay. So it was fast, but I mean, I was not proud of it. It worked, but it could have been so much better because I had to get the life cast, flash it out, copy it,
Yeah.
make it positive, sculpt it, mold it, used epoxy for the negative because I didn't want to take any chance with it sticking in there. And so it wasn't as I could have refined the sculpture a lot more.
And having your own
So,
studio,
exactly.
now you can.
Exactly, and now I'm not going to have anything to do. Well, I've got, I'm going to do like a deck outside in front of the shop part, the building part here, and maybe for the garden. But kids are going to be off school. That's good labor right there. They're strong. They're young.
Swing a hammer.
Yeah, exactly.
Hammers back here. You can swing.
I've got a bunch of those. And
How do people get a hold of you? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I know that you have a website, right?
yes, I do. That's Alan Tuskes -MUFX. AlanTuskesMakeupEffects.com. All one word on the Alan Tuskes. Through Facebook, just look me up. If you go to like the Cleveland Film Commission, the Ohio Film Commission websites, the Cincinnati Film Commission website, I think if you go to IMDb, I think there's contact information there.
I think so too. Thank you for interviewing with us on such short notice. It's coronavirus, so
Yep, there you
we
go.
give
the
that
bump
right there. Get a bump. Thank you guys for joining us
Yeah,
on
thank you for coming out.
St. Patrick's Day.
And look at that. Share it this week, guys. Look at this.
2 different
You're
giveaways.
Not gonna find that anywhere. Scan Winston FX, Scan Winston Studio. There you go. Made in cotton. Yeah.
If folks want to join the Tuesday at 7 TUES, the @7 Facebook group,
Yeah.
we push out Al's projects and other artist projects out there often, and so would be a good way to keep in touch with what's going on here. And
Somebody's trying to get hold of me
is
there.
that right?
Also, if, like I said, I know that there are going to be some bigger projects coming. So obviously Jill was here assisting with that life cast. She's got some experience, and her, from season 12 of Face Off. Ron George, he's never done any appliance work. He does all that wonderful
That
gory
effects,
stuff
gore
out of-
stuff for yeah.
out of kit, which it looks great, but it's not entirely reproducible if you had to play it more than once. I'd like to get him into learning some of those techniques. If anybody out there is serious about this stuff, I'd like to see your work. Contact me off chat, or contact me through Facebook or through the Alan Tuskes -MUFX.com. I hope it's .com. I think it's .com. Yeah, not like the last one. Let me see. I'd like to see some of your stuff.
Might be some
Especially,
opportunity
I just ran into Carl Taliaferro for the first time
for
in
years, decades, right?
Easily, it was
Yeah.
with the Clara Tudosi, the Romanian makeup department head. She said, I want to take M&M's home to my family. I was on the phone with my wife in the car for a few minutes, and when I went in there, I was walking through the store, walked by somebody and thought, Carl? He turned around. Al, what are you doing? I thought it might have been you, but what would you be doing in this side of town? And so I got to talk with him some more. I haven't seen him for years, and he's probably about ready to get back into this if he ever left.
Yeah. There you go. So
Right.
thank you for joining us last minute here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Shop
sticking in.
local, go to monstermakers.com, and also Cybergraphic Designs or
Makeup-store.com.
Makeup-store.com. Support your local vendors, Fred Nurk and Arnie Goldman and Kimmy Goldman there at Monster Makers. And who else do we have locally that you should be buying from? You should be buying from Starship Earth. Fine array of out-of-kit type stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Talk to you soon, guys.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
And keep an eye out next week. We'll be giving away these items then. All right. Take care.
Take care.